Welcome to the Alive Society podcast, where ordinary is canceled and playing it safe is not on the menu. Life is calling. Are you answering? I'm your host, Levi Culley, and we're diving headfirst into the stories of trailblazers, risk takers, and go-getters who've mastered the art of living life loud, proud, and totally alive. This is your wake-up call, my friend. We're here to shake you out of the mundane, pull you out of autopilot, and ignite the fire in your soul to become the main character in your story. Because life is too short to sit on the sidelines. It's time to own your passion, chase your purpose, and reclaim your aliveness. Get ready to laugh, cry, and feel all the feels as we uncover the secrets to fearless living. This is more than a podcast, it's a movement. The Alive Society is your tribe, and together, we're creating lives that feel like an epic adventure. So buckle up, hit play, and let's get alive. Welcome to the Alive Society podcast, and let's make this life unforgettable. With me today, I have Jackie Culley, who happens to be my mother. I've been dying to make this episode. I wanted to get a few episodes into the podcast before I introduced her and brought her on. Just really excited to dig into it. She's obviously my mom. So that's why I'm so awesome, is because she made me that way. But she is a philanthropist, a yoga instructor, a home builder, home interior designer, business owner. She's lost a son before. She is on a unique spiritual journey that I want to talk about, and super interesting stuff. Amazing woman. The biggest part is the philanthropy, and I want to dig into that first. What's it like, Jackie? So for the listeners, she's building, pretty much single-handedly orchestrating, building a very nice home for a family with a 9-year-old little girl with cancer that is terminal, and she's managed to pull it off without spending any money of her own, just with donations and stuff. So dig into that. Where are you guys at, and what's it like, and what's going on, and what's been the hardest part so far?
I thank you for asking. I totally want to talk about that with you, but first I just have to say how honored I am as a mother. Like, I don't know how many mothers get invited onto their son's podcast.
That's very true.
Like, that makes me so happy in and of itself. I could just sit here and smile for an hour.
I'm so glad. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, Joe Rogan's mom doesn't show up on his podcast.
No, so I feel
you must be pretty awesome.
Really honored. Thank you, Levi, for letting me come.
You're welcome.
Inviting me into your world.
You're welcome. Did you think this would ever happen?
That is a mother's greatest wish, is that her kid wants to hang out with her.
That's cool. Well, I do. I always have.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the nonprofit. So the nonprofit that I owned or started is called Christmas for Cancer Families. And when Levi's brother Riley was terminal with cancer in 2017, this nonprofit kind of just started as a fluke. Like, it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to start a nonprofit, and I went after it. You know, it really came because I've developed this skill of, when I get an impression, I act on it before I talk myself out of it. So that's how it started, and it has evolved from getting out Christmas gifts all the way to now, like you said, building a home for a little girl with cancer. Her name is Brielle Bird, and we're calling this the Bird's Healing Home. And I was asked back in December of this last year, a friend of mine asked me if I knew of an organization that would build a home for a family that didn't have a house, and that they had a little girl that was sick. And immediately I'm thinking, well, why would I find somebody else? I can do that myself. But also, like, I got massive burnout. As you know, I've got massive burnout about doing projects for Christmas for Cancer Families, because, I mean, let's just set what's the facts about what has happened here in the last 5 or 10 years here of my life. Like, losing a child after a 6-year battle, that's huge. That's a huge burden on a family and on me. And then, 1 year after Riley died, almost a year, we did that first home makeover at the Augustines. Mm-hmm. And then our nephew, your cousin, my nephew Remington passed away. And 4 days after that, my dad passed away. And then for 4 months after that, Aunt Hazel passed away. And then 1 year after that, my mom passed away. So interspersed with all of those deaths and also us moving like an hour and a half away, so a totally new location. We did the Augustines where we did the home makeover. Then the next year we did the Millers, which was a home makeover and an addition. Then the next year after that was when we moved and we raised money to give that gal money for a car and finished her basement and furnished it. And then we did a complete home makeover in Mendon. And then this last Christmas in December, we finished a basement and did a home makeover for a woman with breast cancer. So we were just wrapping that up when I got the call saying, will you build Brielle a home? And I was already just...
You were burnt out.
Yeah, I was like so done.
Like you work a full-time job, run businesses, run the nonprofit, and this was not in your scope to build a house for somebody.
Yeah.
Like if you were burnt out, why did you take it on?
Because like I said, like I remember where I was sitting and the feeling I had. I was like in the rocking chair in my bedroom when I'm looking at the phone, when I'm reading this message, and I'm like, shit. Because when I get that feeling, I can't say no.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
You can't say no.
And so
would you say that was some kind of like spiritual prompting, or you just had it in your gut?
I would say it was a spiritual prompting. That's one way to say it. I would say the spirits that are here with us that we can't see, that are relaying information to us or telling me like, this is going to be a really great experience that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Not when I say great, not meaning like all positive, like
easy.
It's going to be hard and it's going to provide so many lessons for you and you're going to want to jump off a cliff, which I did, but you're like, it'll push you to your limits, but you should do this, Jackie.
Yeah.
And so I just, on December 26th, Dad and I went and met this cute little girl and her family and asked them if they would trust us to build a house. And I said, I have $20,000 in my account. But on the way there, before I even got there, I called a developer. As we were driving to Malad, I called Brad Hess and said, hey, I understand you have some property. Will you sell us a lot? And told him what we were doing. And I'm sure he thought it would never happen. But by February 1st, we had raised, I can't remember exact now, but around $270,000 in about, what was that, about a month's time? In about a month's time, we raised $270,000. And then we had purchased that property and we had that groundbreaking party, and it was Brielle's birthday too.
Yeah.
So from February 1st to now, 4 months. It's been exactly 4 months. We are going to finish that house in 16 days. We're moving them in on the 14th of June.
And how's Brielle doing?
Brielle
We were afraid she was going to die during the build.
Yeah. That sweet little girl, she's so frail. There's not any treatment left that will save her life, but the doctors told her parents about a week ago that if they didn't do any more treatment at this point, that she would only have months left to live. And so they wanted to, and also she's in a great deal of pain. So right now they are doing 5 days of chemotherapy at half strength and then 12 days of radiation. And coincidence or not coincidence, that lands them on exactly June 14th, finishing the last treatment, the exact day that we're giving them the house. So it's kind of been magical.
They'll be moved in. Do they have to move in, or are you going to handle it?
We Levi.
Shit, you're going to get me into it.
We have not only built this house, we're providing landscaping. We've got some surprises planned, like playground equipment, sandboxes, alarm systems,
cool,
Christmas lights, all kinds of extras. And we're furnishing the house. We've got some designers, influencers off social media that are each taking a room. They're going to fully furnish the house. We've put up an Amazon wish list that has been fulfilled and then some. So every item in that house essentially will be brand new. And we've got professional organizers coming for a week prior to the move-in that are going to go into their existing apartment, pack them all up, We've
Wow.
got volunteers lined up to move them in. So when they walk into that house, it will be like live-in ready.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
they'll get home from treatment,
Yep.
go straight into it.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Can you imagine? And that house,
Holy
like,
smokes.
that's a $1.5 million house.
Okay, explain that though. Like, it's a charity house. Why did it end up being $1.5 million?
Oh boy. Because, okay, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
So I got Dakota Meisner, who's our draftsman and architect, and I told him what we were doing. And I had sent Kendra, the mom, some pictures, and the dad, like, hey, what style of house do you like? And we went back and forth on it. And I'm kind of picky myself. Like, I didn't want to build them just a square box.
You're used to designing $1 million houses.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living, is design custom homes that are
okay.
in the $2 million range. And so it's just, when your mindset is there and your expectation is there, it's hard to dial it back. And then we got Antone from BC Timbers involved, and he's nuts. And he was just like, let's put as many timbers as we can in that house. So I put him and Dakota together.
Because he's donating them.
And they're like, yeah. And so they're making as many timbers in this house as you can, which then makes that roof line really complicated. And it had to be stick framed and had to have custom trusses. And the house just went from this simple service project. I mean, it would have been really easy to build on a square box house, but.
So it's not because like they needed the house. It's just because everyone donating said, I want to donate more. Let's just do bigger.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it was just like, when you're giving somebody a gift, you don't want to just give them like, you don't just give them the bare minimum,
any
right?
house is a nice gift.
Right?
Honestly.
I know.
But I mean, I see the finances because I run the finances behind it, and we really haven't spent that much on this house. It's all the subcontractors just handling.
Yeah. I mean, we'll spend, we will probably have raised a little over 300,000, I think. The land was 150,000. There were things I had to pay for, like the concrete and the lumber and the trusses, and then I've got to still pay like the HVAC guys something and the plumber something, and I'm giving each of the trades as much as I can, because I don't want to take advantage. But yeah, it's incredible. I worked up a budget sheet on it, and it came out with land and everything to be about 1.5 million. And that's not even including the furniture or the landscape or the Christmas lights.
I kind of suck at getting gifted things. Like, I almost tell people I'd rather hang out with you than be gifted something, just because it's awkward for me. Do you think it's awkward for them, especially the dad?
Oh, I bet it is.
Because men suck at it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it's like on the news and the whole community's doing it. Like,
I hope that they can just receive it and say, you know what, we inspired a lot of people to give.
They did.
Keep giving.
I mean, part of the reason why it worked, to be honest, was because Kendra, Brielle's mom, has done a beautiful job at telling her story on social media. And
that's cool.
So she has a couple 100,000 followers, which I had looked when I was asked to build this house for her. I didn't even know her. I didn't follow her page or anything. But as soon as I was made aware of who this little girl was, I went and looked at her mom's page. And she was, Brielle, last Christmas, for her Christmas wish, she had wanted to raise enough money to provide wagons full of toys for every kid at Primary Children's. So
like a whole wagon of toys?
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
And so Kendra, here she was in the midst of her own trial, was gathering all these Amazon packages, had filled their garage. And then her and her little family put them all into this trailer and took them all to Primary Children's and handed them out. And she had raised, I can't remember the numbers now, but I think it was around $15,000 in 9 hours. And when I saw that, it only put fuel on my thought that I needed to do this, because I thought, if she can raise that much money in 9 hours, I can raise what I need to build a house.
And I don't think it was the mom, it's the 9-year-old.
Yeah, it's this sweet little girl. And I think that's part of her mission on this earth, honestly. This project, really, I've gone all over the place with it as far as why I do it or why I should do it. And the bottom line is it's going to provide more for me and everyone that helps than it will for that family.
Yeah.
And I said this to Kendra and Mitch when I went and talked to him in the first place. I said, I know you're going to struggle to feel like you deserve this. You don't even know me. Why would
Yeah.
you trust me to even attempt this? I'm going to need your help raising money. But the bottom line is I want to do this to raise the energy, like the vibrational energy of the earth to that of unconditional love. And when you think about it, like it has reached hundreds of thousands of people. This story, I've been told that it has gotten back to me that there are people in China. There have been people in the UK. There are people in other states that have donated large sums of money that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And also have purchased bricks for the pathway we're putting out in front of the house, which it was a way to donate. And I just feel like it's a perfect place for anyone and everyone to be involved in helping to contribute to the greater good. And I firmly believe that because we are all one, we are all connected.
Yeah.
That when I do this for them, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for the entire world.
Yeah.
It just
That's
elevates.
beautiful. I think that when the scriptures talk about the second coming and that we need to prepare Zion or get ready, prepare for the second coming, I don't think it's preparing, getting a nice hotel ready for Jesus, obviously, but also like, I don't think it's just preparing ourselves spiritually to be okay standing in the face of God. It's also just like being so good and putting out so much good energy that the good and the bad get further and further apart, so that it's clearer and clearer who the believers are. It gets harder and harder to have faith. Like the action that you took to proceed by building a house for a family that deserved it, and by not knowing how you're going to do it, because when you said yes, right, you didn't have any idea. The most that we had ever raised for this nonprofit was like $30,000, and that took a ton of work.
Well, we raised $100,000 when we did the Miller project, because we had 2 donors that donated $50,000 each.
Oh, right.
And that was a project that would have cost $400,000 plus.
Yeah.
And we did it for $100,000. So,
but this is like
this was way bigger than that. But I thought to myself, if I can do that, and for work, I have all the contacts of all the contractors. Like, why not? Like, why not just try it?
Do you think, like looking back, do you think it was crazy of you to do that?
Okay, here's the thing. Like
did it take some like craziness?
I wonder what it looks like from an objective standpoint, because I'm so deep in it that I don't think I fully comprehend how big it is.
Yeah.
But okay, here's an example. I have a $400,000 mortgage, but I'm giving this family a $1.5 million house, and they won't have a mortgage. Like, that's insane. I can't even pay off my own mortgage.
You truly are, like you said, that is the definition of unconditional love. It's giving more than you give yourself or have.
Yeah.
With no like expectation of anything in return. And I
have zero.
You're not getting anything out of this. Like
nothing. That's
pretty impressive. So you went into this burnt out.
Oh yeah.
Day one.
What?
Because everyone listening has experienced burnout. Burnout is extremely tough. It's like debilitatingly tough. There's no way to get around it, and it's like getting out of bed some days is just halfway impossible. But day one you started burnt out, and we're 4 or 5 months in, and then the house is already built, which people building custom homes usually take a year.
Yeah.
So where did this energy come from?
We could have a series of interviews as to why I think this worked. One of my responses is, okay, let's talk about external validation.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
One of the reasons that I went ahead with this was there are few people left in this earth that I care what they think. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Mm-hmm. It's my kids that I care about the most. I care about what you think. And when I told you about this, you chuckled at first, and then you said, "Mom, this is going to be an epic story at your funeral." And I was like, "Oh, I got to do it then. Like, if Levi thinks it's a cool story for my funeral, then I'm going to do it." Like, yeah.
Well, it's because I had just gone to a funeral. And the type of stories that they tell is this kind of thing. They don't talk about work. Work never comes up at a funeral.
No.
It's stuff that they do outside of work.
Or they give you a list of church callings that somebody's done, and I'm like,
Yeah.
who cares?
Right. Yeah.
This is freaking cool.
This is way larger than a calling. I don't care what calling you have. This is way more risk, way more like weight.
Okay, so then some of the other thoughts that I have visited.
So you'll just be honest. I like how you're being honest about that. It was just you were purely looking for external validation.
Well, I don't think it's purely.
Not purely, but
I think that there's several factors here. I think, okay, here's one of the factors.
It's cool to be honest about that.
I think that, like, if everybody's honest, like, a big part of why we do most of the things we do in life is external validation.
To look cool.
Yeah.
To get people to like us. Yeah.
Because I know you'll relate with this. Like, we have this deeply seated feeling that we're not enough.
Yeah.
And that the only way to be enough is to do.
Which is bullshit.
Which is such bullshit.
But it's like wired into everybody.
Yeah. Why do you think it's wired into people, Levi? Who wired that into you?
I know. Like just externally people. Well, it's ourselves, right?
I think it's the culture we grew up in.
Yeah.
We can talk about that later. Anyways, so I really spent a good month or 2 or 3 checking in. I mean, it's only been 4 months, but I spent a good amount of time in the depths of tears and burnout and what the hell have I done, and I can't do this. But during that time, it was a time of deep soul searching. Like, why did I really do this? Let's look at the darks, like the dark and the light, because there's function and dysfunction in everything we do. And I think we're raised to believe in, like, Jesus and the devil, you know, light and dark, good and bad. And it's just this is all bad and this is all good. But I don't think that's the case. This might get a little bit complicated. But, okay, here's my dysfunction. I feel like I've lived in fight or flight most of my life, like in PTSD. And I think that because of that, I have become very good at running. I'm a driver. I'm a goer and a doer, and I'll be damned if you give me something, tell me I can't do something. Like, if you want me to do something, tell me I can't do it, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so my drive for approval, my drive to prove to myself that I'm enough, and my nervous system being shot and living in like literal fight or flight. Yeah. If you want a good employee, hire that person. Yeah. Because you will get the work of 5 people out of that person until they crash. And so part of my dysfunction made this project possible. Yeah. My deep yearning for acceptance and approval and to be seen or heard. And so why I prefaced in the beginning when you asked me, like, what was that spiritual experience you had that told you to do this? And I said, I believe it was like angels saying, this will be a good experience for you. Not meaning it will be a good experience, but it has been a very learning experience for me.
Dude, I can't imagine. I do that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I sign myself up for way too much to say to the world that I'm good enough.
So the biggest lesson I think I've learned out of this, one of the biggest lessons, is all this time, for 53 years, I've been looking for external validation because I wanted to be seen and heard. You know who I really want to be seen and heard by? Me. And I haven't been seeing or hearing myself, because you can imagine how many people have said, oh, you're amazing, you're awesome, look at this stuff, and it goes in one ear and out the other, right? It doesn't land.
If you don't believe it about yourself, you'll never believe that what they say is true.
Right. And so what I've learned is that when I'm exhausted and somebody calls and says, can you do this? And I say yes, I've started to recognize and pay attention to my body, how my body is reacting, and my emotions. Emotions are the signals that we receive from our body that it's trying to communicate with us, that Jackie's trying to communicate with Jackie.
Like your inner self is trying to say something.
Is trying to say, hey, what about me? Why will you build an entire custom home for total strangers, but you won't give me an afternoon on the couch when you're exhausted? And so that's been my biggest lesson. And the other one is like, I don't know about you. I'm your mom. I should have taught you this, but I didn't know it myself. But were you ever taught to trust yourself? I wasn't. I was taught, go ask the bishop, go ask your parents, go ask your teacher, go ask, like, nobody ever said, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
And when I did bring questions, like when I did bring, because I'm a deep thinker, I brought a lot of questions to my parents and my siblings, and every time they had the answers that fit into their little bubble, into their little story. And any thinking outside of that, I was basically shamed for. Like, you're wrong, you're crazy.
Think outside of like the normal truth.
Yeah.
The baseline story of history and humankind.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Four Agreements or
Yeah.
Mastery of Self?
No, but yeah, the first one.
So one of the things they talk a lot about in that book is the fact that all of us humans get domesticated.
Oh.
And how at first we're born these clean slates. Like, we don't know what anything means. But
there's no shame.
Yeah.
We have no fear.
Yeah.
The only fear, I heard this once, the only fear we have that we're born with is the fear of falling down.
Yeah. That makes sense. I don't know. But just so initially we are domesticated by our parents, by our school, by our neighbors, by our family, by our religion. We are very domesticated and brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, into fitting in as another robot in this culture.
Yeah.
Like,
and then we spend the next 70 years trying to undomesticate ourselves.
Then what happens, the next thing after we're domesticated by others, is humans are the only species that self-domesticate.
Oh, wow.
Like, animals don't shame themselves. Animals don't beat themselves up for doing what comes natural.
So we're
self-domesticating or shaming. Yes, you could use that interchangeably, probably.
Very interesting. So is that what you're saying? That to come full circle, you were saying if you want to find the best employee, find somebody who has been ultra shamed and domesticated.
Yeah, I mean, think about
somebody that's really insecure about themselves and wants to really show up to make them, like, the people around them admire them. I've heard this, like, the best entrepreneurs are the most insecure. Because it's their drive. Just like you said, it's the thing that drove you to do something so great was something like a lack or a self-deprecative or like lacking self-love. Yeah,
and part of the reason why I think this, I mean, let's just throw this out on the table too. Like, I would say 90%, 80% of the people that are making this build happen are people who have been through, they've either lost a child themselves, they've got a child battling, they've got a wife battling, they've got a child that's battled cancer. They've, like, every when I go onto the job site and I talk to the subs and I'm like, what made you decide to help? Inevitably, it's they've got a hardship or a story. And so these people have greater empathy. And so that drives them to want to help others. And so there's the light side. The dark side is they don't want to feel the pain of what they're going through, so they want to stay busy.
Yeah.
And that also was a me too. Like, I think in the world as we talk, like, or you talk to anybody, or we listen to anybody, there's always a me too in it.
Yeah.
Like, really, we're all here.
None of us can say that we've never screwed up with what you've screwed up with or anyone else has screwed up with.
And something, I don't know why about me, I'm like this, but I notice a lot that people hate to be wrong. They're terrified of being wrong. They're terrified of being blatantly honest. They're terrified of exposing themselves. And several therapists that I've had have brought this to my attention. They're like, you just put it all out there. You just put yourself right out there, the complete truth, and almost dare people, you know. But what it feels like to me is it's like, what a complete waste of time to not be me. Like, if I'm going to have to pretend to be somebody in order for somebody to like me, I really don't like it would drain my energy to try and spend time with them.
Yeah.
So why not just be 100% me? And because you know what I've found, and when I was a group fitness instructor, so many people would come up to me in class and they would be like, you know why I come to your class? It's because you stand up there and you're so authentic and real.
Real.
And it gives me permission to feel like I can be authentic and real.
Yeah. That is why I admire you the most, is that you're real.
Thank you, Levi.
We talk about this all the time in the podcast and the weekly calls with the Alive Society, is the most alive you'll ever be is being yourself.
Yeah.
And like, not just yourself as like, it's like your child self. It's like your most authentic version of yourself.
Before you were domesticated.
Right. Like in the domestication, you find more about yourself. So there's like 20% of that. Like you find hobbies and little Levi-isms, I'll call it. But like the 80%, the bulk of who you are is shaped before you are domesticated, I think. And the more alive you'll feel is, just like you said, is the more real you'll ever be. So
it's true.
If someone is living out of line with who they are authentically, I think you can tell, because they're, like you said, running away,
checking out,
in fight or flight, kind of like, and we all dip in and out of that, I feel like. But the more we can become self-aware about it and stay out of it, the most is the better. Like, but the most successful, usually the rich, like really successful entrepreneurs really are the most
authentic,
incapable, the most inauthentic people. They're not being the most true themselves.
Really?
I mean, I think there's a flip side, because the universe really does award those who are the most authentic. But I think that
it's
they're
probably
just
easier
working their fingers to the bone, it's usually because they're running away from their feelings.
Yeah.
And this feeling of being not enough, like you said.
I think if we're truly in alignment with ourselves, with God, with the universe, and like we're really listening to ourselves and we're really in alignment with our inner selves, life happens more easily. So you said that entrepreneurs, the most successful entrepreneurs, are typically not very authentic. And what I guess my wonderment there is, if they're not being authentic, they might be having to work 10 times harder than they would if they would just be their authentic selves. Like the way I see this is like when I said yes to building that house, or anytime I've said yes to these things, or me taking a risk, it feels like I'm jumping in the river and riding the rapids. If I'm trying to make something happen that's not in alignment, it feels like I'm jumping in the river and I'm trying to paddle upstream. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
So,
if God's on your side, it's obviously going to go a little easier. But at the same time, he put us here to learn. So if it's a little difficult, like you said, it's not totally just downstream. It's still difficult. Like you still have to push, but it's
in alignment with who you are. Like, so that's why I think that I thought that building this house was doable, because I had the skill set to do it. I had the network to do it. Kendra had a social media following that could support it. And I've done it before. So it wasn't like I was approaching somebody who's never done any design or house building. Approaching this would probably be a whole different story.
Yeah. So this is an interesting topic. I always have assumed and thought and felt that the universe gives back to those who give, almost tenfold. Like the whole law of tithing. I mean, I go back and forth with it because it's difficult, but the law is that if you give a little, God will give back a lot. And the big blessing is that you're not married to money, that it's a little bit more easier to give it, and thus you're not worshiping it as much, and you feel a little bit happier in life without it.
I think it's a universal principle. I don't necessarily think that the tithing rule I
Right.
think that's a small story, a
Of the
small
universal
example of the
principle.
universal law.
So my question is you of all people on the planet that I know are the closest to people giving. You are convincing people every day, selling them on the idea that they should give tens of thousands of dollars and hours and hours and hours of their time and money towards this project. Have you seen firsthand if the universe actually gives back? Are these people being blessed?
1000%. Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so I don't see every single detail of it, but for instance, a couple of years ago when we were doing the makeover in Mendon, I called Sam Faree, an electrician. I asked around, I'm like, hey, do you know an electrician? Somebody gave me his name. I didn't know him at all. I called him and I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. My son died of cancer. I have this nonprofit. We're remodeling this house for a woman with cancer. And I said, would you help me out on the electrical? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So he and his guys showed up very faithfully. They were there every day. They were happy. And then after they, installed all the can lights and some different fixtures, I was like, okay, what do I owe you for the materials? And he was like, oh, nothing. I got it. And I was like, dang, this guy is amazing. He is my new electrical contractor on all of my builds, which I had 8 in the last year, and I have given him the work of 8 custom homes. And so then it was actually so the universe
So you got to
pays
see
back.
it firsthand.
Yeah, and I can
relationship with
repeat
him.
that story many times. Like the number of people I have met, my networking has grown exponentially from doing service.
Yeah.
So I have heard young entrepreneurs and young guys that are talking about, when I get my successful business or when I get established, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And my advice to that is go start the nonprofit.
Day one.
Do something that you are naturally good at that feels in flow with you.
Yeah.
Like don't think of like what's the coolest nonprofit and go make that happen.
Yeah.
Do something that you're naturally good at and start the nonprofit, because I think that energy is contagious. And don't get me wrong, I have my bad days when I'm very low energy, but when I'm this Christmas for Cancer Family stuff, it gets me pumped up. Like I am very passionate about it because it's so cool to witness what human beings are capable of and the miracles that can happen. And so because I get myself pumped up and I'm in this high energy vibration, I can walk into a room of people like at the Home Builders Association in Cache Valley, total strangers, and I don't even know what I said to them, but my enthusiasm and the energy that radiates out from me does something to them, because all of a sudden they all signed up and were like, we want to be involved. What can we do?
Yeah. That's so cool. What kind of, doing this, it feels like anything's possible with you. I feel like if I were to try and go do that, it wouldn't be possible, but anything's possible with you. What's your, like, why is Jackie's mindset so different?
Okay, here's...
You say that you were told no, you can't your whole life, and that you're motivated by feeling like people don't believe in you.
Yeah.
You think that's what causes this mindset?
I think I've overcome it. I think, okay, here's a couple of things that I think that contribute to my belief that I can do anything. I distinctly remember in middle school, junior high, wanting to be a cheerleader, and all my friends were trying out, and I was like, there's no way I can try out to be a cheerleader. Like, they can all do that, but I can't do that. And so I never even tried out. I never danced or did cheer or anything like that. I was like the quiet, nerdy, not nerdy, I guess. I was friends with every group of people. But then even as I got older, I would see people do marathons, and it was like, well, that's amazing that they can do a marathon, but I could never do a marathon. Like, and then in my 30s, I developed, I think it takes one person to believe in you to make a change. So I worked for a chiropractor named Francois Jacques, and he was a runner and a pilot, and he did everything. Like his basement looked like REI. He did all the things. And I was always like, I can't believe you go out and run at lunch. It's 100 degrees out there. Like, how do you even run? I can't run a mile. And he was like, I'll bet you can run a mile. And he's like, in fact, when you run a mile, I'll take you to lunch. And he's like, when you run, here, come do a 5K with me and my wife. And then come do a 10K. And it was like, so I started reaching these small goals. And then when I was 35, I was a group fitness instructor. And one of this punk kid that worked at the front desk, he's like, hey, I'm a personal trainer. Let me run you through my program. And I'm like, I don't need your program. And he's like, just do it. He's like, I'll do it for free because you'll tell all of your class members. And I was like, okay. So nice. David Johns, put me on this high protein lifting heavy weights thing and made me stop running. And he was like, and I said, if I gain weight, I'll kill you. But what happened was I had been taxing my body so hard, and the running was just making me hold fat because my body knew what was coming.
Yeah.
So, but when I started lifting heavy weights and eating high protein, I started to just morph. And so there was a woman in the gym who was a posing coach for the bodybuilding competitions. And she was like, are you training for a competition? And I was like, what competition? And she's like, a bodybuilding competition. So I ended up signing up for this bodybuilding competition, which was way out of my comfort zone. Huge out of my comfort zone. Walking it, for number one, I don't wear high heels. I hardly wear makeup.
Yeah.
And back then there was no like nice spray tans. You like had to paint stain on your skin with a brush and take posing lessons and learn how to walk in high heels and tape your bikini to your body so that it didn't accidentally slide off while you were on stage. And it was just all uncomfortable things. But I got up there and I watched The Secret. I had listened to that book or that movie called The Secret.
Okay.
And it was all about manifesting and positive thinking and like visualizing what you wanted to happen and believing that it would happen. And I remember standing behind the curtain when I was walking out. I was in the tall class. I was 35, so I was in the master's division with all these younger girls.
Shit.
And I was thinking like, I can either walk out there with my head hung down and feel insecure like I've felt my whole life, or I can listen to all the little bits of advice I had gotten, like the old lady in my workout class who said, Jackie, when you walk out there, you look at the people in the audience, you look at them with your eyes and you let them know you're the winner. And awesome. Make sure you smile and walk slower than the other ladies and scan the audience and don't raise one hand like a gymnast, like raise both hands in the air like you're seeing a friend at the dock at Lake Powell. Like, and so all these thoughts went through my head and I'm like, screw it. Like, what do I have to lose? And I walked out there and I looked at those judges and I was like, I am the winner. Do you hear me? I'm the winner. Like,
that's cool.
And there was definitely at least one woman who had more muscle than I did. But she looked down when she walked and her posing was very robotic. And I was out there like, and I had pictured the stage that I would be on in my mind 3 or 4 times a day for a month.
Wow.
Visualizing me walking out, looking at the audience and receiving the trophy. And it happened. And I think, and then I ran, 5 half marathons, and each time I would accomplish these different things, it would build my confidence a little bit more. And so I started to become addicted to doing what felt like it was impossible. And so when somebody asked me to build a house for somebody,
you had to.
I was just like, well, I can't say no to that.
You have to.
Yeah.
So do you think that building self-confidence comes from accomplishing things, accomplishing hard things?
I think a combination, but yeah, I think so. That's one factor I think that played into it. Starts with one little scare the hell out of yourself thing and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And adding upon that, I also think a huge shift came in my life when Riley died. As he was dying and you feel so helpless, like it's like jumping off of a cliff. It in fact feels the same.
Do you feel like nothing scares you after that?
Yeah. Like I had to learn surrender. Like I believe Jesus came here to teach us a few things. One of the most important things I think he taught us was complete and utter surrender and trust.
Yeah.
And when you lose a child, so while Riley was dying and after he died, you saw how I would ride my motorcycle. Like, I didn't give a shit if I died.
Right.
I could care less.
Because you've kind of stared death
Like,
in the face for years.
yeah, it's like, if I'm alive, I get to be with my kids that are here. If I'm dead, I get to be with my kid that's there. So, like,
Wow.
it's a no-lose situation for me. Like,
Yeah.
and now I think as I'm getting a little bit older, I'm developing a little bit more cautious. Like, I notice when I ride my motorcycle now, I'm a little more nervous of like the tar snakes and the gravel and everything.
Well,
but there's a lot of times I probably should have died.
I mean, you're 50 and on a motorcycle. It doesn't mean you're not.
And it weighs 800 pounds.
Not to mention the fastest motorcycle that Harley Davidson makes.
I don't know.
It's impressive.
But I think when you've surrendered something that big, and I really have this feeling like, well, what do I have to lose? I mean, what do I have to lose?
So it's a combination of, building self-confidence to the point where you feel like anything's possible comes from two things so far we've talked about.
Yeah.
Accomplishing the impossible. Because to me
Just
right
starting
now,
small.
running a mile does feel impossible.
Yeah.
But if I went out, put on my shoes, I mean, if we're all being honest, I bet I could run a mile.
Yeah.
And
Or
it
you
would
could run a
suck,
half.
but like,
and you could build upon it for a week, 2 weeks.
And have that win, and then a mile and a quarter, and a mile and a half, and a mile and 3/4.
Yeah. But it's not effortless. It definitely takes work.
Yeah, but the accomplishment, like really accomplishing the impossible,
Yeah.
regularly is cool. That's cool. So, number one, accomplishments, and number two is looking the worst case scenario in the face and saying,
Yeah.
I'm okay with the worst case scenario. It's really not that bad.
Yeah, when I was teaching yoga workshops during that time, I would do this practice with all of the participants. I would have them write down a list of their fears, and then next to it, I would have them write what's the worst thing that could happen, and then write that in the next column, and in the next column, I would write, and if that happened, what's the worst thing? And ultimately, the end column, it's always death. Death or abandonment are the fears that people have. Well, when you've lost your kid, there's like nothing scary. And when the other thing that I think has contributed to my attitude and my fearlessness is all of this stuff happened in the last 5 years. And I also, so losing Riley and then losing both my parents and then moving away from South Jordan, where I was raised and where all my family was.
Yeah.
And then also, sadly, having a miscommunication with my siblings the day that my mom died, which caused us to not really talk a whole lot for the next year. It was actually a good thing for me because it really allowed me space to just be me. Like, I walked away from family. I no longer had my parents who we obviously consciously or subconsciously try to please our entire lives. We don't want to disappoint our parents. So that really freed me. And then walked away from the religion that I had grown up in.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't have the time really to get into that a ton today, but that religion that I grew up in really, if you get underneath the gills of it, really imposes a lot of shame in people. It taught me, do not trust yourself. If you think outside of this parameter, you're crazy. If these things that we're teaching feel weird to you, do them more. If the temple feels weird, go back and keep going back till it doesn't feel weird.
Yeah.
And when I was in that sounded like a plausible, like, okay, that's what I'll do. But when you are away from it, remove yourself from it for a year, I started to recognize that was actually a huge red flag. Like, when I walk into a situation, if my body reacts like, this is weird, this doesn't feel right, should I shut that down? I don't think I should. But when your parents and your siblings and your neighbors, and I was taught my whole life, like, the bishop holds the mantle. The bishop receives inspiration from you. Oh, you need a blessing? Your dad or your bishop should do that. You know, they're closer to God than you are. And so all of these little messages that if people aren't deep thinkers, they just take it, you know, for what they've been taught.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of underlying messages that taught me, Jackie, you're not enough. You're filthy, dirty, sinful, disgusting. You should shame yourself. You know, God thinks you're so filthy and sinful that he's going to have one of his other children be tortured and die so that you can be in his presence again. That's nuts to me. And I would ask these questions when I was a kid. Like, I remember sitting in Sunday school and my teachers would get so mad at me. And my sister used to say, I would have these long conversations with one of my sisters, and we would go get Diet Coke and donuts, and I would ask all these questions. And several times she said to me, Jackie, every time I have these conversations with you, I have to go home and have my husband remind me why I believe in the church. And so there's no freedom. Like, to me, if something is true, like for you as a home builder, if you're really who you say you are, the best home builder, and somebody comes and says, well, I'm going to go check out this guy and this guy, wouldn't your response be like, please do? Yeah,
right.
Go interview him, go check him out.
Yeah.
And let me know what you find out. I would love that. Yeah. And because if I'm not doing the best, I want to do the best. Yeah. But look at the fear that is put into you. They're like, don't read any anti-literature. Don't. And I haven't. Like, I haven't. I don't need to. Yeah. Because my body is telling me constantly, like, that's not right. And so whether I'm wrong or right, like, I don't know. I can't speak for anyone else. But for me,
yeah,
in the last 5 years since I've walked away from that, I feel free. I feel happy. I'm starting to love myself. I'm starting to think bigger than... Have you seen that movie called That Guy That's Raised in a Bubble? What's that?
Oh, The Truman Show.
The Truman Show.
Yeah.
I watched that a couple months ago.
Yeah, big.
And I just sat
big
and
realization.
bawled.
Yeah.
And like how they scripted into that.
Sad.
Yeah, it made me so sad.
Yeah.
They scripted into that movie that he and his dad had been in a boat in the water and his dad had drowned to implement fear of water.
Yeah,
so that
he wouldn't leave the bubble.
Yeah, so that he couldn't figure out he was in a bubble.
Right.
And isn't that exactly what happens?
Yeah. Well, sometimes in culturalized religion, the culture becomes the religion, and the culture is what, like you said before, domesticates the child away from being more of themselves and becoming more of their culture. So like if Jesus came so for the listeners and for everybody, it's like I'm still in the LDS church and you've pretty clearly kind of just left it with respect to it because you and I are friends.
Yeah.
But I go to church and I teach the 10-year-olds primary and I share my thoughts on the stand and everything. And I'm in a really good place with it. But this is funny that you and I agree on this thing. This like really essential thing is that culturalizing religious belief is almost as bad as domesticating a child. Well, and it just happens naturally, right? I guess to a child.
I don't think anybody does it intentionally.
No, I don't think so either. But like there's just a few culturalized things that really bug me, like a few things that you mentioned. And again, I stand fully in the church and I just don't call myself of the religion. Like I believe in the gospel, the principles of the religion, but like the culture of it, where it's like, I don't know who came up with that. like there's this old adage about a story to depict a higher principle, that there was a lady once that would cut about 3 inches off of each end of a turkey and cut the top off of the turkey before cooking it.
Yeah.
And she was asked one time on Thanksgiving with a friend, "Why are you doing that?" And the lady said, "Oh, because my mom always did it this way. She said it was better."
Yeah.
And then the lady said, and then the lady goes and asks her mom, "Hey, Mom, why did you do this again?" And she said, "Oh, because my mom always did it." And she goes to the grandma, and the grandma says, "Oh, because our oven wasn't big enough to fit a full turkey.
Yeah.
So I was cutting the edges off."
Exactly.
That's happened in every church,
Yeah.
every organization ever created that lasts more than a generation. And that's the part that's religionized.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's like if I was a deacon and I showed up in a blue shirt, they wouldn't want me to pass the sacrament because I wasn't in a white shirt. But then I asked, okay, well, did Jesus say anything about wearing a white shirt to church?
Or long hair.
Yeah. Or piercings or
Jesus have
tattoos or like a beard or...
Yeah.
That's culture, and I get that there's small details, but there's a few things that are really not that small
No,
details.
there's some big stuff.
That and another thing, and then I'll be done, is, and I think you'll agree with this, hopefully, is that people that act like they know it all spiritually or religiously are dumb. Like, I want to just like say right now, we know a half of a quarter of a tenth of a 1%.
Yeah.
Of everything that God did and his plan for us.
Yeah.
Like, the Bible doesn't depict it, the Book of Mormon, and it just ended like hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Like, we have no, like, to say that you know how it works and you're the only true and all-knowing is not true. Now, I get that the LDS Church totally says outright, we don't know it all. And we rely on, like, updated and new revelation from a prophet, and that's great. I just there's quite a few people that just don't act like that. They act like, we know the truth, and we're not going to open our eyes to any other options because that's silly.
Well, and why, in my mind, why do you think they don't want to open their eyes to any other options? Fear.
Like the Truman Show, it's instilling fear in its followers of looking outside of the bubble or looking deeper than like, where he went to the beach or whatever.
Interesting, like when so many times I struggle to go sit in Sunday school or Relief Society, which is in part why I stopped going, because so many parents are in there bawling because their kids left the church. And I'm like, why are you so freaked out that your kid left the church?
Yeah.
Like, that would be like me being freaked out if we agreed that you were a Green Bay Packers fan, and then you're like, no, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. And I'd be like, my son is no longer a Green Bay Packers fan. Like, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
But they think it's this eternal salvation thing, which I think is a complete joke.
And it all comes down to what kind of God do you believe in? Do
Right.
you believe in a God that really would, like, let you burn in hell because you wanted to seek him more in other ways, in other religions?
Okay,
like if I went Catholic today and you were hardcore LDS and you believed that I was going to hell because I became Catholic, that's not the God I choose to believe in.
No.
And everyone needs to decide personally what the God they believe in is like.
Yeah.
And gain a relationship with him and move on from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you're relying, and I've said this in earlier episodes, if you're relying solely on just your religion to tell you what your God's like, you don't have a close enough relationship with him, and you're missing out on all of the benefits of having a savior.
Yeah. Well, there's a story in the Yamas and Niyamas about a monkey that's sitting in a tree, and he looks down and there's a fish swimming in the river down below him, and he panics, and he thinks he needs to rescue that fish out of the water, because if he leaves the fish in the water, he's going to drown. Because that fish should be in the tree where he's at. So the monkey takes the fish out of the river and puts him up in the tree, and the fish dies.
Oh.
And the principle is that if I think I know what's better for somebody else than they do, then that is an act of violence, And it's also me saying, I don't trust God or his plan for you.
Huh.
If I think I know what's better for you than you do, then how offensive would that be to you, Levi?
Yeah, that would suck.
You would be offended.
Yeah.
I've never been able to tell you what to do.
Right. And nor have people to you.
I tried.
where I got it from.
I tried. It's frustrating to me that I didn't recognize that I was stuck sooner.
Like it is an act of violence to take somebody
Yeah.
away from.
It's kind of, do you know the Elizabeth Smart story? Like,
Oh, yeah.
the Stockholm syndrome, where she
Yeah.
she was literally convinced that she was doing the right thing by allowing this guy to rape her, and that she was supposed to be his second wife and all this stuff. That's called Stockholm syndrome. It's serious brainwashing.
Where people protect their abuser, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like if you zoom way out and look at that religion from a different perspective, I feel like it is very controlling and abusive. And when people try to simply think for themselves and have a different opinion, you're not this way, obviously, but
The shame
most
for it.
people get really freaked out and think they are possessed by the devil, or they've simply left because they want to sin. They don't want to wear garments. They don't want to obey the word of wisdom, which none of that is the case at all.
Yeah.
Like, people are not leaving because they're trying to be rebellious. People are leaving because they're trying to breathe and they feel like they're being suffocated and controlled. For me.
Yeah. And that's so fair to say.
Like, nobody really knows. It's impossible. There's not enough evidence to prove that there's any one true religion. And so to take away from people the opportunity to think for themselves, I just feel is sad.
Yeah.
Like,
And
like Noah, your nephew, my little grandson that's 5, we were driving through Sardine Canyon a year ago, and he said, "Look out your window, Grandma." And I looked out, and he said, "Is that beautiful?" And I said, "Yeah, that's beautiful, Noah." And when I got home and I was laying in bed that night, I thought, dang it, Jackie, that was a perfect opportunity. What I should have said was, well, I think it's beautiful. Do you think it's beautiful?
right, in a way that shamed him.
Right. It was like I
tell
told
him
him
what's
what was
beautiful.
right
Yeah.
in a young, impressionable mind.
Yeah. That's so interesting. We are all, like, when we're young and impressionable, yeah, it's really important to ask the kid, like keep him, and
Yeah.
I suck at this, but like, let people be them,
Yeah.
and fire them up about being them.
What I wish I
Always
was.
going to be love and acceptance and a happier home and better lives that way.
Yeah.
Even
I
if
wish
it's-
I would have done a better job raising you guys. But I didn't know what I didn't know. But
Yeah.
what I think this world needs is for people to say, to teach their kids, how does that make you feel? Like, what do you feel or notice in your body?
And what do you think?
Yeah,
Rather
like
than me tell you.
And if I'm like, here, drink this battery acid, the kid's gonna be like, well, I feel scared. And like, learning to recognize
Feeling
what
scared.
their body is telling them.
Yeah.
And to trust themselves.
Yeah.
The biggest, like when I talked to Kendra about Brielle, she's in a really hard circumstance. Like, having conversations with your children about their mortality is not easy.
Right.
And my only advice I've been able to give her, because every person's situation is so different, is to trust herself. Like, you are her parent for a reason. Just trust yourself. Just be still and listen in here, not out here.
Yeah. I think it's really unfair, destructive, and kind of like you said, I can't remember the word, but just mean,
Violent.
I think it's an act of violence to give someone advice.
Yeah.
Like Casey and I talked about this all the time. Like, Giving someone advice, especially
If
when
they
it's
didn't ask
unasked for,
Yeah.
is violence. It's really unfair. Like everybody has the ability, they were just born with the ability to make their own decisions. And if someone asks me for advice, I even go as far to say, dude, I'm not going to give you advice because I'm me and you're you and you need to be more you.
Yeah.
And
You're good at that stuff.
people who chase, drooling, trying to be other people, they'll never get there, and they're just doing themselves more harm. They'll never get the results that they want by trying to be someone else.
Right. I lived my whole life, or a good chunk of my life, you could call it seeking external validation, but truly having been taught and believing that everyone else had the answers, but I didn't. And 1000% now, I know that all of life's answers are inside of here. They're inside of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody else has the answers for me.
Yeah.
No one.
And back to spirituality, everybody's spiritual journey and relationship with God is personal,
Yeah.
extremely sacred, and has nothing to do with you.
Right.
It's all about them.
So why do people get so freaked out if somebody else makes a different choice? Like why do they even lose any energy over that?
So here's a little test that I like to run. If I'm more concerned about other people's spirituality, I'm not there yet. I'm not in a good place spiritually.
Right.
If I'm going
Because
to
it means you
lose
don't trust
sleep
God.
over someone making a decision, it's like, where's my faith, right?
Yeah.
There is no trust in God. There's no faith. And I think the one thing that where we see differently is that I don't necessarily think that the religion promotes or denotes looking elsewhere for answers. I think that's a cultural thing that has been picked up and passed down like the turkey not fitting in the oven.
Yeah.
Like that message is pretty loud in in the LDS culture. But if I read
It's in
the
every
actual
culture.
Book of Mormon or the Bible or like actually sit with myself, that goes against who I am. And that goes against what I believe in. And it's okay to disagree with a leader in a church. I disagree quite a bit with a lot of leaders in the church because whenever they say that, like don't look other places, don't read the Kama Sutra or I don't know, whatever religious books are out there. Like, don't look other places. I lose a little bit of respect for them, but I just choose not to believe what they said right there. You know, because like you, think that all truth is found. There is truth in everything.
Yeah.
Even in the worst, like, evil places, there is truth.
Yeah.
And understanding truth will always make us happier and more wise. I think 100%.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, for everybody listening, that's probably the first time you've ever seen a son and a mom completely disagree, but agree on 100 other things about religion. That's pretty special. That's honestly really amazing.
I'm like unattached. You and I both trust ourselves. We've both done enough work that we trust our own ability to have our own answers and have mutual respect.
Yeah.
Because we both agree that nobody actually really knows.
Yeah. And like I always say, I genuinely think religion is kind of like supplementary to my actual relationship with God. Now, barring the fact that I totally believe that the temple, like if anyone listening doesn't know much about the temple, just like look into it. But like the temple is a sacred place for me. A lot of cool covenants happen there. And I feel like for my journey, that's something that I need is like a little bit of structure around my spiritual journey. But outside of that, definitely like, dude, I'm gonna just like love on anybody believing anything because I think it's more important to believe something than like rely on other people's beliefs or not ask the right questions or just to kind of float through life like the fish, or
Yeah.
I mean, like always wondering more, but not diving more. Like,
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't spend time thinking about it,
yeah,
I would imagine. God has always been my number one thought. Like, I have spent more time thinking about God and the universe and what is truth than anybody. I used to get teased in school and because I would talk about it so frequently.
it's very important because it'll shape our lives here on earth. It's like we got to know what's next
Yeah.
to prepare, and this is a short time.
Yeah.
I think anybody who is over like 20 years old, or even the 16-year-olds, they blink and a year goes by.
Yeah.
Like, we all know that life is short and time is short, but there's a way bigger picture just because of what's going on. Houses are being built for 9-year-old cancer patients. There's like hundreds of people donating their time and money and effort towards building homes. There's so much good happening that just says in and of itself that there is way more purpose here on earth than just
Yeah.
the life of a fish or a life of a mosquito. It's
Yeah.
like they live and they die, you know?
I think the whole point of this life is our experiences. I don't think there's a right and a wrong, honestly. I think we came here to experience as much as we could experience.
Yeah.
Because how else do you become like God if you're not going to experience anything?
Right.
And so that's just a little tidbit. So I have a favorite quote that I'd love to share.
Yeah. I want to hear
And
it.
it's that quote that says, "When you come to the edge of all that you know, you must believe one of two things. Either there will be ground to stand on, or you will be given wings to fly." And I love that because it's having the courage to be you.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, it means that you're going to walk. I think that our culture teaches that there has to be an answer for everything. And there's no room left for wonder.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be a beautiful world if children were left more space to wonder.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
aliens. We know there's aliens. We don't know anything about them, but do we talk about them? Do we wonder? How much time do we spend in wonder?
Yeah.
Instead, we spend time trying to convince each other that our point is, or our perspective is true and yours is wrong.
Right.
When really it's like, how about we walk into the unknown and trust
Yeah.
that either we'll be taught to fly or there'll be something solid to stand on.
And I think in everybody's life, they have to experience that or else they are missing out.
Yeah. I think it's just so limiting. So it's such a small, I just think it could really stifle some people.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just like we talked about, how much confidence that builds,
Yeah.
being able to do things that are impossible.
Yeah.
Or that you feel like are impossible, that it's going to build confidence, make you feel alive, make life worth it. And in my opinion and your opinion, it sounds like that's kind of the purpose of life.
Yeah.
Is to get out here and do things that we feel are a little bit impossible.
Do what scares the crap out of you. Do what you think is impossible. Because, like, who wants to... just think about you could ask yourself this question every day, like, what's going to be said at your funeral and who's going to show up?
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
well, I was
all that
really
matters.
safe and I followed all the rules
Yeah.
and that's it. Thanks for coming.
It is important to think about who's coming and how many people are coming. Like, cherish some freaking relationships. Get some people who you love and love them back, you know?
I don't know. By the time some
important.
people die, all their friends have already died. So
That's true.
I'm just kind of hoping that my 2 children that are on the earth will show up.
Yeah.
And maybe a few of my grandkids.
We'll be there. We will be there. Well, we have to wrap up. Thank you so much, Mom.
Yeah,
joining
thanks for
me. This
having
is
me.
a super huge blessing. I think we've talked about an amazing topic of kind of just the purpose of life and the perspective of death and self-love and exploration in life. And appreciate your time and your heart and your vulnerability to the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
And everybody listening, until next time, stay alive.